There's an estimated 171 billion barrels of oil that can be extracted, making Canada the third largest reserve worldwide. Much of that oil is found in Alberta and Saskatchewan, but you may not know this, but Manitoba is the fourth largest producer of crude oil in Canada. In fact, most of Manitoba's oil wells are located here in Westman, as we have the northern boundary of the Bakken field. Canadian oil supply surpasses capacity, which means that in Canada, the supply of oil is higher than the demand for oil. Expanding and constructing pipelines are needed to get that oil to market. If we do not build new pipelines, it'll mean that more and more oil will have to be transported by truck or by train, which will only further clog our burgeoning logistics system. The railway is used to transport oil barrels where pipelines do not exist. The issue of moving oil by pipeline is a much safer and more efficient way than by rail. We must never forget that communities such as Souris, Verdun, and Alexander, and many others all have railway lines running through them. Canada must also diversify who we sell our oil to. Our southern neighbor, the United States, is currently the #1 importer of our oil. However, most Canadian oil is selling lower than North American prices. Oil from Alberta trades at a discount to the U.S. benchmark West Texas Intermediate. But because of pipeline and rail bottlenecks, the discount gap is costing us billions of dollars a year. As it stands, Canada exports less than 1% of Canadian oil to markets beyond North America. Pipeline expansion is needed to increase the competitiveness of Canada's oil industry by facilitating access to broader markets. The Pacific Gateway is vital to increasing access to emerging markets in India, China, and Southeast Asia. Canada must act to secure itself as the main producer and exporter for these new markets. Otherwise, they will look elsewhere for oil. This is a chance to boost the Canadian economy by billions of dollars and create extremely well-paid jobs. In 2017 alone, the oil and natural gas industry injected close to $13 billion into the Canadian economy. The Canadian Energy Research Institute projects that Western Canadian oil industry could contribute $1.5 trillion in provincial and federal taxes and provincial royalties over the next 30 years. These are not insignificant numbers. In fact, crude oil makes up 2.2% of Canada's gross domestic product, our GDP. That being said, access to overseas and new domestic markets is critical to stimulating this growth in revenue. This revenue could be used to build new schools, hospitals, roads, and housing. Investment in pipeline infrastructure will ensure that Canada draws in capital that creates jobs and spurs economic growth. Instead of paying countries such as Saudi Arabia for their oil, we should minimize Canada's reliance on foreign oil by establishing new pipelines that reach Ontario, Quebec, and our maritime provinces. In Westman, we have many hard-working Manitobans who rely on the energy sector, whether for business or employment. The creation of new pipelines would also benefit Canadians at large, as new pipelines would lead to an increase in the number of jobs, a great boost to our energy sector. Canada's energy sector has the capacity to be even stronger and benefit even more Canadians. Pipelines are critical to achieving this potential. This is a reality we should not ignore.